everyone, and welcome back to our homeroom, and welcome to May. I can't believe it. We are now into the last month of school, at least for the students here in Florida, which means summer is right around the corner. And if you are like me and other parents, we look forward to summer because we get, in our minds, we have this idealized version of summer where we're all just having fun and going on vacations and things like that. But the reality of summer often, unfortunately, doesn't line up. We have a lot of problems that come up that we don't have to deal with during the school year, like managing more technology time, figuring out chores, who's doing what chores, siblings fight more often. We've got camps and, how long do we let our teenagers sleep? So there's a lot of new things that kind of pop up over summer. So if you'd like some help with that, I've actually decided to create some sessions just focused on coming up with summer behaviors, plans, scheduling options, to help you and your family come up with things that make sense. So if you have older children, we work together as a family, and I help you guys, guide you all into coming up with what are the technology limits that are best for you? How are we going to handle sleeping times and chores, and how are we going to get along? And then I provide parents with some really good misbehavior tips for specific behaviors that you see with your kids over summer. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm going to put some links down below. Please check that out. It's totally up to you. It can be 1 session, 2 session, 3 sessions, however much your family needs, whatever your budget is, things like that. I really try to work with you to make it be individualized just for you and your family. So make sure to check those links out below. Also, to help you get into the right mindset for summer, these last 2 podcasts, I've talked about some really pervasive parenting myths that really actually make parenting harder for you. So we're going to go into more detail about that today. That'll help also with your summer, kind of get you in that right mindset and really thinking about how you want to manage your kids now that you're around them almost all the time. So last week, we talked about 3 popular authoritarian myths. And this week, we're going to talk about 3 popular permissive myths and why those are misunderstood. We're going to go into why they're problematic and what we could be thinking instead. So what's interesting when you think of authoritarian and permissive, these 2 styles are probably the most common ones that we see in the world. And yes, there are some great new ones coming around. Gentle parenting is taking off. There's responsive parenting and conscious parenting and positive parenting. And those are all really great. However, for some reason, we've still got a lot of these myths still hung up with authoritarianism and permissive parenting. So that's why I focus a lot about kind of dispelling those issues. We want to get those gone and out of the way for good. So what's interesting about both authoritarianism and permissive parenting styles is they are both hierarchical power structures. So with authoritarianism, we have the parent at the top who is a boss who manages and bosses the children who are at the bottom of the hierarchy. In authoritarianism, the parent at the top, their feelings and needs matter more than their children, so there's not an equal understanding there. There is also authoritarianism, although they're great at setting boundaries, the way they enforce those boundaries are often really harsh, and they use punishment and shame, which can cause a lot of damage with our kids down the road. They don't really have much of a loving bond. That is not prioritized because the kids' feelings are not prioritized. However, in permissive parenting, we also have a hierarchy where the kids are at the top and the parents are at the bottom, kind of being those pushover parents. In this structure, the kids' needs and feelings are priority above the parents, which can cause some resentment and overwhelm and things like that with those parents at the bottom. So it's not great. And although permissive parents do create more of a bond because their children's feelings are important, so there's more of a loving bond there, it can often be too much. Those parents can be too hands-on, too over-involved, and not having a lot of boundaries with their children. And kids really, really need those healthy boundaries. So both permissive and authoritarian are harmful for our kids. So today we're going to go into why those permissive beliefs are harmful, some truths that we need to adopt instead, and these are going to make your parenting much easier for you and much better for your children, especially in the long run. So don't forget that I do have a reference sheet down below. So if you're listening on Apple and you'd like a visual, you can print that out to have later. I'm also again on YouTube. So if you're not watching me there now, please make sure to check me out on YouTube if you like having those visuals instead, because I use slides there. And all right, let's go ahead and dive into Busting Popular Parenting Myths Part 2. So, as I was saying, both permissive and authoritarian parenting styles can cause some harmful effects for both us and our children. So, even though permissive parenting does create a loving bond, which is the most important thing, that's what our kids need more than anything else, it still leads to problems because permissive parents don't hold boundaries really well. And that can lead to entitlement in our children. It can lead them to grow up and not understand how to respect other people's boundaries. Because parents are so hands-on, children can start to lose trust in themselves. They can lack confidence because their parent always has to step in and do everything for them. It can lead to them not having any perseverance or resiliency. And then in the meantime, because the parents are stepping in doing so much, it can also lead to parents feeling overwhelmed. It can lead to burnout, and then possibly even resentment can build because nobody likes to do everything for everyone. So none of those are good effects of permissive parenting. So let's go into the 3 most popular myths that I've tended to see over these last few years working with parents and just being in the parenting sphere. These kind of just really stick around, and they may sound good in theory, but most of them are actually really harmful. So let's talk about why they're problematic and what you can think instead. So myth number 1: my kids should be priority above everything else. And again, while this sounds good in theory, it causes a lot of problems. If you put your child's priority above everybody else, that usually means you're going to lack giving them boundaries. You're not going to be saying no to them very often. And this can cause children to feel entitled. When they get used to having a parent who does everything for them and stops doing what they're doing to prioritize whatever the child needs, steps in and helps them with all of their things first without taking care of their own needs, those children are going to grow up and get into relationships where they feel that the other person should do that for them. So that, again, it causes entitlement, and we don't want our children to grow up expecting that from someone else in a relationship. Another problem is then that means we are not prioritizing our own needs. And this can cause us to feel drained. It can cause us to build up resentment. And coming from a place of resentment or burnout is not a great way to parent. So, in truth, what is the most important is our needs are just as important as our children's. Kind of like that idea of being in the airplane and using the oxygen mask for yourself before you do that for your child. The more your needs are met, the better of a parent you will be, and your kids want you to be a good parent. They want you to be happy. They want you. That's what makes them happy. They don't want to feel the burden or responsibility of being the reason that their parents are stressed. Another argument could be that the relationship between you and your partner should be the priority, because the more you and your partner are getting along and coming from the same page, the better you're both able to parent. And it just makes the family run a lot better when your needs are met. You're not feeling resentment. You're not feeling burnout. We just become better parents. So yes, should our children be a priority? Absolutely. But we never want to prioritize our kids more than our own needs and those relationship needs between you and your partner. All right, let's move into myth number 2. I must prevent failure, mistakes, and negative feelings. This is so common right now. I see so many parents so concerned about their child's failure, making mistakes, messing up in school, getting bad grades in school. Because of that, they get very concerned about making sure the teacher is the right teacher and trying to micromanage school and, because they don't want their kids to get bad grades. And it could just really, really gets out of control. And so it's really, really problematic because when parents prevent children from making mistakes or experiencing failure or the negative feelings that come along with failure, that means our children never learn perseverance. They don't learn how to pick themselves back up again after failure. And that is the only way we learn perseverance. It's how we build confidence. So if somebody is always stepping in and preventing those bad things, quote, bad things from happening, our children never get a chance to realize, hey, that didn't feel so good. Let me figure out how to do that better so that next time this doesn't happen. When we prevent those natural consequences or logical consequences from happening, it's usually comes from a very selfish place. A lot of the times it's because we as parents don't want to feel the negative effects of our children's failure and mistakes, and we don't want to have to deal with their negative feelings. But it is normal and natural for them to have mistakes and to fall on their butts every now and then. In fact, let's use a perfect example of when babies first start to walk, right? So when babies first start to walk, we might provide some safety in the environment. We make sure that corners are covered and things like that, but we do not always step in when our children are learning to walk. We know they're going to fall on their bottoms, right? We let them figure that out, and then we cheer them on when they pick themselves back up again and try it again. And babies will persevere, right? They fall on their bottoms and they get back up and they try it again, and they fall and they get back up and they try it again, and they keep going. But so we don't want to keep stepping in. When our children get a bad grade in school, that's the same thing as a baby falling on their bottom. We don't want to prevent that bad grade because then they won't know how to prevent it themselves in the future. So it's really important that we let our children experience mistakes and failures. It is actually the only way they're going to learn that perseverance. So unless it is a health and safety issue, again, with our babies learning to walk, we cover up anything dangerous. We're not going to let them do that in, maybe out on the cement or, walking on a sidewalk where there's a bunch of traffic or people walking by. So we provide, some safety there. But other than that, them falling on their bottoms is okay. Getting a bad grade in school is okay. And in fact, I would promote that it is very, very necessary that your children at some point get bad grades, and so that they can figure out how to bring those grades up themselves. So we've got to allow those mistakes, and we've got to allow the failures. And unfortunately, that means we have to learn how to deal with those negative emotions that come. You're just there to be that support on the side. Tell them that you're so sorry and you know that that has got to be so tough, but that they can do it. They can figure it out. You're there to help them if they need it, but to not step in and prevent those things from happening to begin with. It's really, really important for their perseverance. So let's go on to myth 3, which is kind of related to myth 2 a little bit. So myth 3 says, the more hands-on I am, the better my kids will be. I would usually actually, if I had to tell parents one way or the other to be hands-on or hands-off, I actually believe being more hands-off is actually better than being more hands-on. Again, you have to use your better judgment, but most children thrive better when they have more independence. So parents who snowplow, so I've heard this analogy recently, snowplow parents get all the obstacles out of the way. They clear everything out. They make sure they have a teacher that their kid's not going to, have a problem with. They make sure their classes are right, so they're step in a lot. They're telling them which classes they think they should take that will help them maybe be successful and make everything easy for them in the future. But when you're removing all those obstacles, one, you're micromanaging for your children. You're taking all those decisions from them, and then that prevents our children from being self-sufficient. They don't learn how to do those things themselves ever. And so then they're going to grow up to be adults that are really going to struggle with how to trust themselves to do these things on their own. They need to learn how to rely on themselves in times of struggle. So if they never have struggle, they will never learn that they can pick themselves up from that struggle. Another issue with parents who are always in micromanaging and trying to make everything good is it implies to your child that you don't believe they can do it. So then once you lose trust in your child also will start to lose trust in themselves. So then again, they will grow up and they will be children who do not have confidence in themselves. So if we think of the baby falling on his butt example, if parents continually stepped in and prevented that child from falling at all, will the child learn to walk? Maybe, But in their mind, there will always be this idea that they didn't ever do it themselves. They only did it because mom was there to help them. And we don't want that. We want them to feel that they can do that all on their own. So it's really, really important. One of the most damaging things of permissive parenting that I see is way too much hands-on, way too much, which leads to then too much micromanagement, trying to stop failure, trying to stop mistakes. And instead, we want to promote mistakes. We want to promote independence. As long as there is not a health and safety issue, you should give your child as much space and time and independence as possible so that they have that space to figure out who they are and what they can do to help themselves. What are their strategies to help themselves through struggle? You want them to learn that all on their own. So, although it is so, so important that we have that close, loving relationship with our kids, it is equally important that we have boundaries with them. We don't over-involve ourselves in their life. We tell them no when we also are too overwhelmed and feeling like we're doing too much, especially if it's something our kids can do themselves. We say no. We let them have that independence and that struggle to figure that out on their own. This has so many benefits for both the kids and the parents. Kids grow up learning healthy boundaries, even learning that they themselves can have healthy boundaries, that it's okay for them to say no when they're overwhelmed. So that's also a great benefit for you holding boundaries is your children learn that they can also hold boundaries. And then it just allows our parenting to be so much more enjoyable because we're not overwhelmed. We're not stressed out. We're not stepping in and doing too much for our kids. It's for school especially. It is your children's school. Let them take charge. You just back off, be that cheerleader on the side, helping them through the failures and mistakes, letting those natural consequences that the school has to get to your children so that they then learn how to pick themselves back up. So, these permissive parenting myths can be harmful to our children in all these ways, and that makes parenting more difficult. So we want to let go of them as much as we can. Hopefully these were convincing so that when you go into this summer and school year, you can let go of some of these for good, learn how to have some healthy boundaries with your kids, and step back and give them that independence as much as you can. It'll benefit both of you. All right, I always end each podcast lesson with some homework to help you direct what we learned about back to you and your family. So hopefully you can apply all of these things at home. All right, so our first question is, what are some ways that you could prioritize yourself and your needs by saying no or by holding more firm personal boundaries? And I was not great at holding boundaries either. So if you are like me and you really struggle with how to do that in a way that doesn't feel too harsh, please check out my episode 7 and my episode 10. Both of those episodes, I go into how to hold boundaries, why they are beneficial for our kids, and how to do it in a way that you don't feel like you're being harsh or selfish or any of those things that can sometimes come up when we hold boundaries. But it is super important for your kids that they see that you're saying no when you're burnt out and overwhelmed. They would much rather not have a burnt out and overwhelmed parent. They'd rather you say no and just say, you know what, I'm too tired right now. I would rather do it when I can enjoy this time with you more. So it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to say no, or no, not right now. Let's do that later. I'm in the middle of something else. It is okay to prioritize our needs and our boundaries over our children. In fact, I would argue that our needs are more important than our children, because the more our needs are met, the better we are able to parent. All right, number 2, what can you do to be better at handling the negative emotions that come with your child's failure or mistakes? This is just a lifelong practice. Our kids trigger our own emotions daily, and this is one of the big ones. When our children, we see that they're about to fail, we see that they're about to make a mistake. Of course, we know that more than them. We've lived on the planet for longer, but that doesn't mean we have to rush in and stop that. And I know that means that you'll have to deal with the negative emotions that come with failure or come with the mistake, and that is really hard. However, it is so much more important that you let them learn perseverance and resiliency, how to pick themselves back up after failure, than it is for them to experience negative emotions. They can move on from negative emotions. Those will go away quickly, but it takes time to build up perseverance. So try to figure out what can you do. Maybe there's a way to look at making mistakes and seeing failure as a positive and seeing it as a growth. And you kind of just have to sit back and kind of sit on your hands a little bit and let them experience that, and then be on the side to comfort them when they feel that failure and the negative emotion. Tell them that you're here for them if they need some help, but not stepping in and just overdoing for them without checking with them that they want your help. So yeah, try to figure out a way to be okay with those negative feelings. It's hard, but it's so important. All right, and number 3, where can you let go and allow your child the opportunity to have more independence and space? Anywhere you can. If it is not a health and safety reason, then your child should be able to do those things on their own. They might have some negative consequences. They might make mistakes when they do things on their own. But the more you can promote that independence, the more you can promote them trying new things on their own, even if those things might make them fail at something or make mistakes, give them that space to figure it out. Again, you're on the side, you're helping them through the negative emotions that comes when they make those mistakes, but it's so much more important that our children have that independence and space to really figure out who they are, to build up that self-resiliency so when they grow up, they believe in themselves, they trust in themselves to figure things out on their own. Because at some point, they're going to be on their own and you won't be around them. So you want them to have practice being on their own and figuring those things out on their own. So if you aren't sure how to do that, if you struggle with giving your child independence and space and control and power, you want to check out my episode 12, where I go into how to reciprocate boundaries with our children, how to give them that space that they need. So also a big benefit from that is you'll stop seeing power struggles. A lot of our power seeking kids, when they don't have enough independence and space, they let you know by fighting back. So if you want some help with that, please make sure to check out episode 12, where I go into all the different ways to help give your children the boundaries that they need. All right, that is it for this week. I hope that these last 2 weeks have clarified a few of those pervasive parenting myths that are really harmful for both us and our kids, to make parenting a little bit easier for you, make things more successful for your children. But if you have questions or you're not sure about some of them, please reach out. I also can help. If you're really struggling with your children at home, I do offer parent coaching, family coaching, student coaching, to get all of those things in order at home so that you just enjoy family life. Again, we have a few short years with our kids. We want it to be the most enjoyable that it can be. So if you need help with that, please reach out. I've got links below. My email is my name, kristentame@gmail.com. So reach out to me there. And if you'd like more free content, I've got a lot of it out there. So you can follow or subscribe me. I'm on Apple, I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. I also have a blog on my website. And if you go to my website, a pop-up will occur. You can sign up for my newsletter. That goes out once or twice a month. I have tips for parents there too. Those links are all down below. So please sign up and reach out whenever you need anything. I'm here for you. I love helping parents get all of these insights to really help them enjoy parenting and family life a little bit more. So we've only got one more episode for season 1. I am taking a break over the summer with podcast episodes because I'm going to be recording some classes and really boosting up a lot of the other things that I offer. So one more episode next week. We're going to get into summer discipline and how to handle our kids over the summer. So please tune in. And until then, enjoy the next 2 weeks, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.